My parents changed their will to leave everything to my golden child brother, then had the audacity to keep demanding I pay their bills. So I canceled all payments and watched their house go dark from my car while enjoying my coffee. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey Reddit. So my parents' electricity got cut off last week, and I'm the reason why. I watched their house go dark from my car parked across the street, sipping coffee while they frantically called my phone. Probably should have felt bad. Didn't. Let me tell you from the start. I, 34 female, come from what I always thought was a pretty tight family. Middle class, suburbia, the whole American dream package deal. My parents are in their early 60s. My brother, I'll call him Tyler, is 36. And then there's me, Leona. We're not the Hallmark movie type where everyone hugs and shares their feelings. More like the kind where we communicate through passive-aggressive comments about each other's life choices over dry turkey at Thanksgiving. But I always thought we had each other's backs when it mattered. For context, I've always been the responsible one. Got decent grades, went to a state college, landed a stable job in pharmaceutical research. Nothing that gets me invited to fancy cocktail parties, but I pay my bills and have my shit together. Tyler, on the other hand, has always been the golden child. Went to a fancier college that my parents helped pay for while I took out loans that I'll probably still be paying when I'm wearing adult diapers. Got an MBA, and now works at some tech startup where he makes good money, but still somehow manages to be too busy whenever my parents need actual help. Funny how being busy is selective like that. Growing up, our roles were pretty clearly defined. Tyler was the star, the one whose football games and debate tournaments were mandatory family events. Meanwhile, I once won a statewide science competition, and my parents skipped it because dad had a golf game and mom had a hair appointment. When I got home with my trophy, mom just said, "That's nice, honey. Did you remember to defrost the chicken for dinner?" Cool. But I wasn't bitter. Okay, maybe a little bitter. Like lemon rind left in sun for a week bitter. But I dealt with it. I figured that's just how families work. Someone gets to be the star, and someone gets to be whatever I was. The supporting character, the sidekick, the chicken defrosting champion. I moved out at 18 for college, worked 2 jobs while taking a full course load, and graduated with honors. My graduation party was a Denny's breakfast, where my dad spent most of the time talking about Tyler's new apartment in Chicago. Tyler wasn't there. He was networking in Cabo. Apparently, tequila shots and sunburn are crucial career development tools. Who knew? After college, I took a job at a pharmaceutical research company. Started at the bottom, worked my way up to senior researcher. Not glamorous, but stable. Good benefits. 401k. The whole boring adult package. I bought a small condo. Adopted a cat named Professor Whiskers. Shut up. I was high when I filled out the adoption papers. And settled into a quiet but satisfying life. Tyler, meanwhile, bounced between sexy-sounding jobs at startups with names like Blastcore and Nexify, companies that seem to primarily produce branded hoodies and press releases about disrupting industries that didn't need disrupting. He lived in expensive downtown apartments, dated Instagram models, and somehow always seemed to be just about to make it big. BTW, the big making it, never quite happened, but my parents remained convinced it was just around the corner. So here's where things get weird. About 3 years ago, my dad had a health scare. Nothing major in the end, but enough to put him in the hospital for a few days. Mom was a mess, so I took off work to handle everything. Hospital paperwork, insurance calls, bringing mom food that wasn't radioactive cafeteria sludge, walking their dog, everything. Tyler sent flowers and called once. Because nothing says I care like a $50 bouquet and a 3-minute phone call while you're probably taking a dump. I remember one night during that hospital stay, sitting in dad's room while he slept. Mom had gone home to shower, and I was catching up on work emails. Dad woke up around midnight, looking confused. "Leona?" he mumbled. "Where's Tyler?" "He's in Boston, Dad. For work. Remember? He called earlier." Dad nodded slowly. "He's doing so well, isn't he?" Such a good son. I just smiled and helped him take a sip of water. Whatever. Dad was on pain meds. I wasn't going to get into it. After Dad recovered, they started talking a lot about getting their affairs in order and making sure everything's set up properly. I didn't think much of it. Seemed smart after a health scare. Then I started noticing little things. Dad asking me to help set up automatic payments for their bills, because technology is confusing. This from the man who spent 30 years as an electrical engineer, but suddenly forgot how buttons work. Mom calling to ask if I could just help out a little with their property tax because they were a bit short this year. The requests got more frequent. Cable bill, water bill, new roof, plumber. Every time it was just temporary or just this once. But somehow it became my regular role. I was basically subsidizing their lifestyle while working full-time and trying to save for my own future. You know, that future where I get to retire before I'm 97 and maybe one day afford both rent and avocado toast in the same month. The first time they asked for financial help, I was genuinely concerned. My parents had always been stable, careful with money. Dad's engineering job had paid well, and Mom's part-time work as a school secretary had added a decent second income. They owned their home outright, had saved for retirement. What had changed? We're just in a bit of a tight spot, Mom said vaguely when I asked. Investments, you know. The market. I didn't push it. Maybe they'd made some bad investment choices. Maybe their retirement funds had taken a hit. It happened. And they'd help me out when I needed it, like that time in college when my car broke down and I couldn't afford the repairs. They'd sent me $800, no questions asked. This was just my turn to help them out. Except it didn't stop. The requests started small. $200 here for a higher than expected electric bill. $350 there for car repairs. But they escalated. Property taxes, insurance premiums, a new water heater, new windows, a kitchen renovation that somehow went from we're just updating the countertops to we need all new appliances and custom cabinets. Meanwhile, Tyler would swoop in for holidays, bringing expensive stuff and telling stories about his business trips, and my parents would just eat it up. Tyler's doing so well. Tyler just got a promotion. Tyler's thinking about buying a vacation property. Yeah, easy to do when you're not spending $800 every month on someone else's bills. Amazing how much disposable income you have when you're not, disposing of it into your parents' bank account. I tried to keep track of how much I was giving them, but honestly, it got away from me. Between the automatic payments I'd set up and the random emergency requests, I was probably sending them between $1,000 and $1,500 every month. That's not pocket change. That's a mortgage payment. That's a nice car. That's a yearly vacation to somewhere that requires a passport and doesn't have bed bugs. But every time I started to question it, to wonder if maybe I should be saving that money for myself instead, the guilt would hit. They were my parents. They'd raised me, fed me, clothed me, taken care of me when I was sick. How could I not help them when they needed it? So I kept paying, kept helping, kept being the responsible one. I cut back on my own expenses, canceled my gym membership, stopped getting haircuts at the nice salon, and switched to Great Clips. Meal prepped sad little containers of rice and chicken instead of going out to lunch. Told myself it was temporary, just until they got back on their feet. I didn't mind helping out at first. They're my parents, But something felt off about the whole situation that I couldn't quite put my finger on. Like when you walk into a room and forget why you went there, except the room is your family dynamic, and what you forgot is your self-respect. Then, about 6 months ago, my mom texted asking me to join a family financial planning Zoom that weekend. I figured maybe they were finally going to acknowledge all the help I'd been giving and work out a fair system. Maybe even a thanks for keeping our lights on for the past 3 years. You're the best daughter ever speech. A girl can dream. I logged on 5 minutes early, dressed in a nice blouse, hair combed, looking like a responsible adult who definitely didn't just eat cereal for dinner standing over the sink. Mom and Dad joined next, then Tyler popped in last, looking like he'd just stepped out of a J.Crew catalog. Perfectly pressed button down, artfully tousled hair. The kind of casual expensive that takes a lot of money and effort to achieve. Hey everyone, he said, flashing that white strip smile. Let me just share my screen. Turns out, it was Tyler running the whole show, sharing his screen with PowerPoint slides about estate planning and asset management. My parents just nodded along as he talked about their house, investments, and retirement accounts. Tyler had apparently gotten a side gig as a financial advisor infomercial host based on his delivery. As you can see, Tyler was saying, pointing to a pie chart that made about as much sense to me as quantum physics, we can restructure the portfolio to maximize growth while providing necessary liquidity for current expenses. Mom and Dad were nodding like those bobblehead dogs people put in car windows. They didn't understand a word he was saying. I could tell because I've seen that exact same nodding when I try to explain my research to them. It's their, we're pretending to follow, but actually thinking about what's for dinner face. The weirdest part? My name wasn't mentioned once during the entire call. Not once. I sat there on mute, watching my own face get smaller in the corner of the screen, as they discussed the future as if I didn't exist. I was the digital equivalent of a houseplant in that meeting. Actually, no. Houseplants get watered and acknowledged occasionally. Slide after slide of financial jargon. Projections, graphs, recommendations. Not once did anyone say, and of course we need to factor in all the support Leona has been providing. Not once did anyone say, We should probably stop relying on Leona's income. I was invisible. A ghost. The financial version of a Victorian child, expected to provide but not speak. Until the very end when Mom suddenly said, "Oh, and Leona, the property tax bill is coming up again. We're counting on you for that, sweetheart. You've always been so reliable." That was my role. The reliable one. The one who pays bills. The human ATM. Leona. Making family finances happen. Except without the courtesy of a commercial break. I unmuted just long enough to say, "Sure, Mom," then made an excuse about a work call and logged off before anyone could see the tears of frustration building in my eyes. After the call, I felt hollow. Something wasn't adding up. Why was Tyler suddenly so involved in their finances when he'd never helped out before? Why were they planning everything around him? And why did they still expect me to keep footing their bills? It's like they were planning a party I was paying for but wasn't invited to attend. I started paying closer attention, watching, listening. That's when I noticed more weird shit. Mail coming to their house addressed to Tyler about their mortgage. Dad mentioning offhand that Tyler had taken him to meet with their financial advisor. Mom asking me to help her download an app that would let Tyler view their bank accounts just to keep an eye on things. Because apparently the only thing better than one person having access to empty your accounts is two people having access. One Sunday, I stopped by their house unannounced with some homemade cookies. Because I'm still a good daughter, damn it, even when I'm suspicious. They were out, but Tyler's car was in the driveway. I used my key to let myself in, calling out as I entered. No answer. I walked towards the kitchen and heard Tyler's voice coming from Dad's home office. He was on the phone. "Just need to finalize the transfer," he was saying. "Once the house is in the trust, we can—" "Oh, hold on." He'd spotted me in the doorway. "Gotta go," he said quickly into the phone, then hung up. "Hey, sis," he said, all casual like I hadn't just caught him talking about transferring my parents' house. "What's up?" "Just bringing by some cookies," I said, lifting the container. "What are you doing here?" "Just helping Dad organize some paperwork." He gestured vaguely at the desk, which was covered with folders and documents. "Boring stuff." "What kind of boring stuff?" "You know, financial stuff. Estate planning. Nothing interesting." I nodded slowly. "Need any help?" "I'm pretty good with organizing." He shook his head quickly. Too quickly. "Nah, I got it. Dad and I have a system going." A system that apparently didn't include me. I started feeling like I was in some kind of weird gaslighty thriller movie, where everyone else is in on something you don't know about. The sixth sense. Except instead of seeing dead people, I was the only one who couldn't see I was being played. Then 2 months ago, I found it. I was helping Mom look for a receipt in her home office when I saw a folder labeled Will Final 2023. I know I shouldn't have looked, but wouldn't you? If you're thinking no, I wouldn't, then congratulations on your moral superiority, but also you're lying. I waited until Mom went to answer the phone, then pulled the folder out. My hands were actually shaking. I felt like a kid sneaking a peek at Christmas presents, except instead of hoping for a PlayStation, I was hoping I hadn't been completely erased from my parents' lives. Inside was their updated will, signed and notarized just 3 months earlier. And guess what? Everything was going to Tyler. The house, the savings, Dad's vintage record collection, Mom's jewelry, all of it, even the damn dog. There was even a letter explaining their decision. Tyler has demonstrated financial acumen and responsibility. We believe he is best positioned to manage our estate and legacy. Not a word about me. Not one fucking word. No explanation of why I got nothing. Not even a sentimental item or family photo album. I didn't even get the participation trophy of inheritance. Apparently, my 3-year financial support subscription didn't include legacy access. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The room actually spun for a second. I had to sit down, the paper crumpling in my shaking hands. This couldn't be right. There had to be some mistake. Maybe there was another document, another will, something that explained why I'd been completely erased. But there wasn't. Just page after page detailing how everything would go to Tyler, how he would manage the estate, how he would carry on their legacy, while I, apparently, would get nothing but the satisfaction of knowing I'd helped fund their retirement while being written out of their lives. I put everything back exactly as I found it and didn't say a word. But inside, I was screaming. All those bills I'd been paying, all those times I'd shown up when they needed help, all the vacations I'd skipped because I was sending them money instead. And this was how they saw me? As nothing? I could have set myself on fire to keep them warm, and they'd complain about the smoke damage. I drove home in a daze, trying to figure out what to do. Confront them? Demand an explanation? Beg for inclusion? Write a strongly worded letter? Hire a skywriter to spell out what the actual fudge over their house? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over and over the past 3 years in my head. All the checks I'd written, all the automatic payments I'd set up, All the times I dipped into my savings to help them out. And for what? To be erased? To be nothing? I pulled out my bank statements, started adding up the payments. Over 3 years, I'd given them more than $40,000. $1,000. That's a down payment on a house. That's a master's degree. That's a really nice car or a really mediocre boat, and they couldn't even be bothered to leave me a freaking coffee mug in their will. I decided to wait, to watch, to see if they'd ever tell me themselves, to see if they even thought I deserved to know. And that's when I made a decision that might make me the asshole. I didn't tell them I knew. I didn't confront them. I just stopped. Stopped answering when they called about bills. Stopped sending money. Stopped being their safety net. Stopped setting myself on fire to keep people warm, who weren't even grateful for the heat. I told myself I'd give them 3 months. 3 months to either come clean or to show me that I mattered for more than my wallet. 3 months to see if they'd even notice I was pulling away. To my surprise, they didn't. Instead, the request just got more insistent, more entitled, more desperate. The financial version of a toddler throwing a tantrum in the candy aisle. Leona, the electric bill is past due. When are you sending the money? Leona, we need the property tax payment by Friday. Leona, did you forget about the cable bill? Your father is missing his shows. Not once did anyone ask if I was okay, if something had happened, if I needed help for a change. They were so far up their own asses they could see their tonsils. And Tyler? Radio silence. Apparently, the family financial manager wasn't concerned with actual day-to-day bills. Shocking how financial acumen doesn't extend to actually paying for things. One evening, about a month into my financial strike, I went to their house for dinner. Mom had called and specifically requested I come over. We need to talk about something, she said, which usually means, we need you to write a check for something. I didn't want to go, but I went anyway, because I'm a masochist apparently. Or maybe I was still holding out hope that they'd notice something was wrong, that they'd ask if I was okay, that they'd recognize I was a person with feelings, and not just a convenient ATM with legs. Dinner was the usual, and conversations dominated by Tyler's latest achievements, even though he wasn't there. Dad talked about how Tyler was thinking of investing in some new tech startup. Mom mentioned how Tyler had sent them a gift basket from some fancy store I couldn't afford to shop at. Then, as I was helping clear the dishes, Mom said, "Oh, Leona, the property tax bill came yesterday. It's $3,200 this year. Can you take care of that by Friday?" Just like that. No, please. No acknowledgement that she was asking me for $3,000. No recognition that I'd been ignoring their financial requests for weeks. Just the expectation that I would pay. Because that's what I did. That was my role. The responsible one. The wallet. "I can't this month," I said, keeping my voice neutral as I rinsed a plate. Mom froze, sponge in hand. "What do you mean you can't?" "I mean I can't. I'm having some financial issues of my own." Not a lie. My financial issue was that I'd been hemorrhaging money to them for years. But this is important, Leona. It's property tax. If we don't pay, there are penalties. I shrugged. "I'm sure Tyler can help out. He's doing so well with all his financial acumen and everything." Mom's face did something complicated, like she was trying to solve a difficult math problem. "Tyler? But he doesn't. We don't ask Tyler for money." "Why not?" "Well, because he's busy. He has his own expenses, his own life. And I don't." Mom looked genuinely confused, like I'd suddenly started speaking Klingon. "That's different. You're the responsible one. And that means I'm responsible for your bills too? We've helped you too, you know. Remember when you needed money for car repairs in college? We sent it right away, no questions asked." I had to laugh at that. "Mom, that was $800 like 15 years ago. I've given you tens of thousands of dollars since then. It's not the same thing." Mom's face hardened. "I didn't realize you were keeping score." And that was it. The moment I realized nothing was going to change. They didn't see a problem with the arrangement. They didn't understand why I was pulling back. In their minds, this was just how things were supposed to be. I pay, they take. Tyler gets everything in the end. The circle of financial dysfunction. I dried my hands on a dish towel and grabbed my purse. I should go. "But what about the property tax?" Mom called after me as I headed for the door. I turned back just long enough to say, "Not my problem," and I walked out. Then 3 weeks ago, Mom called and asked me to meet them for lunch. "We need to talk about something important," she said. My heart actually skipped. Was this it? Were they going to tell me about the will? Apologize maybe? Give me a kidney? At this point, I would have settled for any organ recognition. I got to the restaurant early, feeling nervous but hopeful. They showed up 20 minutes late, with Tyler in tow. We ordered, made small talk about the weather and Mom's garden. Then, as our food arrived, Mom cleared her throat and said, "Leona, sweetheart, we wanted to talk to you about the bills. We've noticed you haven't been keeping up with things lately." I waited. Surely this was the lead up to the real conversation. The appetizer before the main course of, "We're sorry we've been treating you like an unpaid utility service." Dad jumped in. "We understand everyone goes through tight times. If you're having financial difficulties, you should have just told us. We're family." I nearly choked on my water. They were talking to me about financial difficulties? After I'd been bankrolling their lifestyle for years? The irony was so thick you could frost a cake with it, but I kept my cool. "I'm doing fine, actually. Just reassessing my budget." Translation: reallocating funds from the bank of enabling you to the republic of taking care of myself for once. Mom looked relieved. "Oh, good. So you'll take care of the electric bill this week? It's 2 months overdue now, and they're threatening to disconnect service." That's when Tyler, who had been silent until now, added, "It's important to stay on top of these things, Lee. Financial responsibility is crucial." I stared at him, then at my parents. Were they for real? Was this actually happening? Was I having an aneurysm? Was I being pranked? Where are the hidden cameras? Tyler went on, warming to his topic. "I've been looking at Mom and Dad's overall financial picture, and frankly, I'm concerned. Their retirement planning needs serious attention. That's why I've been stepping in to help manage things." "Manage things," I repeated. "Like paying their bills?" He had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. "Well, no, not the day-to-day expenses. More like the big picture stuff. Investments, estate planning, the future." "On the future," I echoed. "Right." And that's when Mom dropped the bomb, completely casual, like she was commenting on the weather. "Oh, and while we have you both here, we've updated our will recently. Tyler will be handling everything when the time comes. He's just better positioned for it, with his financial background. We know you understand, Leona. You've always been so practical." They'd planned this, waited until a public place, brought Tyler as backup. They never intended to apologize or explain. This lunch wasn't to come clean. It was to make sure I kept paying their bills even though they'd cut me out of their future. It was an intervention for my sudden outbreak of financial self-respect. I sat there, fork halfway to my mouth, as the full reality washed over me. I wasn't family. I was a utility, a service, a means to an end. I wasn't a daughter. I was a walking, talking direct deposit. I put my fork down slowly, took a sip of water, placed a 20 on the table for my meal. "I think I should go," I said quietly. "But you've barely touched your food," Mom protested. I just looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time. I'm not hungry anymore. Not for food, not for bullshit, not for the emotional scraps they were tossing my way. As I stood to leave, Dad called after me. "So, about that electric bill." I turned back just long enough to say, "I'm sure Tyler can handle it. He's better positioned for that kind of thing." Throwing their words back at them felt good, like returning a decade of Christmas fruitcakes all at once. And I walked out. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't send angry texts or make dramatic phone calls. I just went home, sat down at my computer, and systematically removed myself from their financial lives with the precision of a surgeon removing a tumor. I canceled every automatic payment I'd set up. I closed every joint account. I called every utility company and removed my name as an authorized payer. I emailed their HOA to let them know I would no longer be covering the dues. I even called their lawn service to cancel the monthly maintenance I'd been paying for. I crossed every T, dotted every I, and cut every financial cord with the dedication of someone closing their tabs at the end of a night of drinking. Except I was finally sobering up. The satisfaction I felt with each cancellation, each removal, each deletion was concerning, honestly. It felt too good. Like I was finally taking back control of something that had spun way out of my grasp. Each click, each call, each confirmation email was another brick in the wall I was building between myself and their financial exploitation. Then I blocked their numbers. Not permanently, just for a week. I needed space to think without the guilt trips and demands. Like a financial detox. For that week, I felt strange. Lighter in some ways, heavier in others. I kept expecting to feel guilty, but mostly I just felt sad. Sad that the family I thought I had never really existed. Sad that I'd spent so many years trying to earn love that should have been unconditional. You shouldn't have to buy your seat at the family table. When I unblocked their numbers, the messages flooded in. Confused at first, then concerned, then angry, but not concerned about me, concerned about the bills, the payments, the services. My favorite was Dad's. "The internet is out? How am I supposed to watch my YouTube videos?" "I don't know, Dad. Maybe rub two sticks together and see if Netflix appears?" I didn't respond to any of them. What was there to say? "Sorry your human ATM grew a spine?" 2 weeks passed. Then 3. I focused on myself for once. Started looking at my own finances. Shocked to realize how much I'd been giving away all these years. Thousands. Tens of thousands, probably, over time. Enough to have bought a small house in some states. Or approximately 8,000 avocado toasts, if you believe what boomers say about millennial spending habits. I started therapy, started actually spending money on myself without guilt, joined a gym, booked a hair appointment at a salon that didn't also cut pets' fur, bought new sheets with a thread count that didn't feel like sleeping on sandpaper. Small luxuries that felt enormous after years of pinching pennies so my parents could live comfortably. The calls and texts kept coming, growing increasingly desperate. Mom switched from anger to guilt. I don't understand why you're doing this to us. After everything we've done for you. Dad was more direct. You need to start paying these bills again. This isn't acceptable behavior. Then yesterday, I got the text I'd been waiting for. From my mom. The power's out. Did you forget the payment? No. I miss you. No. Can we talk? No acknowledgement of what happened at lunch. Just the assumption that I would keep paying, keep fixing, keep being the ATM. Might as well have texted money please, like Mona Lisa from Parks and Rec. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, no. I remembered exactly what you said. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. Slept like a baby, actually. The kind of sleep you get when you finally put down a backpack full of rocks you've been carrying uphill for years. This morning, I woke up to 37 missed calls and a voicemail from my dad that was just him yelling about responsibility and family duty. But here's the part that might make me the asshole. I knew they didn't have the money to pay the electric bill. I knew their power would be shut off if I didn't step in. And I did nothing. In fact, I drove to their neighborhood around the time I knew the power company would be coming to disconnect service. Parked across the street, watched as the utility van pulled up. Watched as the worker got out, went to the meter, did whatever they do to shut off power. Watched as the lights in my parents' house went out. And I sat there, sipping my coffee, feeling nothing. No guilt, no sadness. Just a calm certainty that this was the natural consequence of their choices. They had used me, taken me for granted, and now they were experiencing what life was like without their personal ATM. My parents came outside, both on their phones. I could see them gesturing, probably leaving me increasingly frantic voicemails. Dad paced the driveway. Mom sat on the porch steps, head in her hands. I should have felt something, right? Guilt? Remorse? The overwhelming urge to rush in and fix everything? But all I felt was relief. Relief that I wasn't responsible anymore. Relief that I didn't have to keep setting myself on fire to keep them warm. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am the asshole for letting them sit in the dark, rather than just paying the bill one more time. Maybe I should have confronted them directly instead of this silent treatment. But after years of being the responsible one, the reliable one, the fixer, I'm tired. I'm just so damn tired. There's only so many times you can be the family doormat before you realize people are wiping their feet on you. So Reddit, AITA, final update. Hey again, thanks for all the awards and comments. Reading through everything has been intense. Like therapy, but with popcorn and occasional trolls. A lot of you asked for updates, so here goes. It's been about 2 weeks since I posted this. A lot has happened. First off, yes, their power did get turned back on eventually. Apparently, Tyler finally stepped up and paid the bill after 3 days. 3 whole days before Mr. Financial Acumen decided to handle a basic utility payment. I guess his PowerPoint skills don't translate to paying power bills. Who knew? Those 3 days were interesting. I got hourly calls and texts, each more desperate than the last. Dad threatened to call the police and report me for elder abuse. Mom switched between guilt trips. I can't believe you'd let your own parents suffer. And attempts at manipulation. We're going to have to sell our jewelry to pay bills. Tyler kept alternated between angry texts accusing me of being heartless and pleading messages, asking me to just pay the bill one more time and we'll figure this out. I didn't respond to any of them. I just kept reminding myself of that will, of being written out of existence while still being expected to fund their lifestyle, of years of being taken for granted. It was like a mantra, keeping me strong when my resolve started to weaken. On day 3, the calls stopped. The texts stopped. Radio silence from all of them. I actually got worried enough to drive by their house that evening. The lights were back on. Tyler's car was in the driveway. I later found out he'd finally stepped up and paid the electric bill, then spent the evening explaining to my parents that maybe, just maybe, they shouldn't have been relying on me for money all these years, while planning to leave everything to him. Apparently, there was a lot of yelling, a lot of tears, a lot of denial and justification, but Leona never seemed to mind. Second, I got a handwritten letter from my mom yesterday. Not an email or text, an actual letter, which shows how serious this is because my mom hates writing anything by hand. Last time she wrote something by hand was probably my birth certificate, and I'm pretty sure she complained about hand cramps. The letter wasn't exactly an apology, more like a confused attempt to understand what happened. She wrote that they've always seen me as the strong one, and never meant to take advantage. Said they didn't tell me about the will because they didn't want to upset me and thought I wouldn't care about material things. Because apparently being written out of existence is a compliment to my spiritual nature or something? Thanks, Mom. I'll pay my rent with enlightenment. The real bomb was the last paragraph. We always counted on you because you were the only one we could trust. Tyler may look good on paper, but you were our rock. So I was good enough to trust with paying their bills, but not good enough to trust with their legacy? Nicelle. I'm reliable enough to fund their retirement, but not reliable enough to inherit the fruits of it. Make it make sense. I haven't responded yet. Still thinking about what I want to say, or if I want to say anything at all. Currently torn between writing K on a blank piece of paper, or sending a bill for all the money I've spent over the years. With interest. Oh, and Tyler called me too. Get this. He admitted he had no idea about the extent of what I'd been paying. He thought I was just helping with occasional expenses, not basically funding their entire lifestyle. When I told him exactly how much I'd been sending them monthly, $1,350 on average, he actually went quiet for once in his life. I think I might have broken him. You've been paying that much every month? He finally asked. For 3 years, I said, while you were busy making PowerPoints about their estate that I wouldn't be getting any part of. He had the decency to sound embarrassed. I knew you helped them out sometimes, but not like that. They told me it was just small stuff. Well, now you know, I said. And now it's your turn. He stayed silent. So where do things stand now? I'm still holding firm on not sending money. I'm still processing my feelings about all of this. And I'm still trying to figure out what kind of relationship I want with my family moving forward, if any. Right now, I'm leaning toward Christmas card from a different state level of contact. But one thing I know for sure, I don't regret standing up for myself. Not for a second. Turns out my spine works just fine once I decided to use it. Thanks for the validation, Reddit. Sometimes you need strangers on the internet to confirm you're not crazy for expecting basic decency and respect from your own family. The bar was so low it was practically a tripping hazard in hell, yet they still found a way to limbo under it. P.S. For those asking about therapy, yes, I've started talking to someone. First session was yesterday. My therapist's eye twitched only 3 times during my story, so I consider that a win. P.P.S. To the person who suggested I use the money I'm saving to take a dream vacation instead, already booked tickets to Thailand for next month. First big thing I've ever done just for me. Gonna get one of those shirts that says, my parents wrote me out of their will and all I got was this lousy t-shirt, and emotional trauma, and a trip to Thailand.